debate so vile, even Vaush, world-renowned horse fucker, had to cut it off.
Just, you know, if you're going to admit to any crimes, I would really rather not be listed in whatever federal reports are filed, so I would prefer it be done in a video on your stream, unrelated to my own. Well, should it come down to
that's why pedophilia is so attractive to me.
Why does he say things?
Because
it would always look like when I was wearing shirts, I was wearing a dress, and I kind of want to imagine. I just kind of want to see Destiny walking around looking like that. Although now,
well, I think that opposite.
Wait, is he saying a lot of people on the right are pedophiles? Am I reading that correctly? That seems a little bit unfair.
yeah, I think your stances on pedophilia are going to be more controversial than mine. Again,
Oh man, it's at this. Oh, this is where RGR comes from the rafters. Wait a second, Vaush. Damn.
what do you mean?
Accusation is dropped. Misinformation. The Dally Band strikes again. Destiny debate. The debate so vile, I had to end it. Oh man, now I've heard a lot. Heard a lot about this one, okay? We're gonna find out. Load this up after MrGrirl summary. Oh, maybe. Fuck, I've got that dumbass fucking Christmas song fucking stuck in my head now. Holy shit. Ba-bum, 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 bum. A debate so vile, even Vaush, world-renowned horse fucker, had to cut it off.
Hello.
Howdy.
Howdy. Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you said.
Who reached out to talk to who? I'm curious. Did Vaush, do you think Vaush only had this guy because I just talked to him and he wants to like one up me, or do you think that like he just saw it and he was like, oh, this would be an interesting conversation? Because it seems like he didn't do, or at least I've seen his audience like complain that he doesn't do as many challenging conversations anymore. So I'm super curious. MrGrirl reached out. Okay, gotcha. I'm super curious. Super.
Thank you, Steven.
Thank you, Mooten. Okay,
Vaush bad.
I need more. Blue track. Oh man, dude, I'm fucked.
Sound fine. What's up?
I don't know. What's up with you?
Not much. We're playing Metroid Prime, which is a fun game. So you know,
Yeah.
in that respect,
I
things
played
are going well.
I played that a little bit when it came out, but I never beat the whole thing.
Nice.
I did just beat Metroid Dread though. That's pretty good.
We're struggling with it now. You know.
Yeah, those
as
games are
adult.
tough.
Styling on our performance as a young one. Anyway, what do you have on your mind today?
Well, well, first of all, are we going into this with preconceptions of each other? I have preconceptions of you, obviously, but where are you? What's our relationship like right now?
Well, my only preconceptions of you were that you emailed me saying that our opinions might differ on the subjects of gender theory, BLM, and pedophilia, which definitely has, you know, which definitely elicits some preconceptions. I've got to say, a bit of curiosity.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. It was a saucy way to introduce myself.
I can't help but point out these sentences now when he speaks. It was a saucy way to elicit my attention or whatever.
It's some preconceptions, I've got to say. A bit of curiosity.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah. It was a saucy way to introduce myself.
Or wait, hold on. Where was it?
Well, hit me up with your introduction then. In an entire. Well.
Oh fuck! Yeah, I didn't go back.
Preconceptions. I've got it. Only has, you know, which definitely elicits some preconceptions. I've got to say. A bit of curiosity.
Oh sure. Yeah, yeah. It was a saucy way to introduce myself.
Well, hit me up with your introduction then, in an entirely different way then.
Okay, so I'm MrGrirl. Some of you may remember my Cuties review. I think that's the thing I'm most well known for last year.
Oh, son of a bitch! Yeah, I remember that.
It got me banned from YouTube for 4 months.
Jeez.
Yeah, I bet a lot of people reported that one. That's,
It did. They said they reported me for having child porn on my channel, and I guess YouTube takes that pretty seriously, as they should. Absolutely. And then, yeah, they just ban you and like check it out later, I guess. But it took a long time to get my channel back.
Oh, welcome back.
Thank you.
Wait, holy Jesus Christ! On January 7th, 2021, which is the highest recorded day of single infection for coronavirus cases, the UK had 52,000 cases. 52,600 cases. On December 23rd, they reported 122,000 cases. They're double the amount. The UK is double the amount of daily cases right now. I'm not picking on the UK also. I'm pretty sure a lot of places are starting to spike pretty crazily. Jeez. Deaths and hospitalizations aren't following suit? Are you sure about that? If the cases are spiking today, we would expect to see deaths trail by about 10 days, right? I don't know if they will or not. Maybe they won't. If they won't, that's good. Maybe most of these are like breakthrough cases from infections. Hold on, let me look at the... I think you can definitely see the success of the vaccinations. So here in January of 2021, right, you see how high the cases are here. They start to spike again in July. Look at over here. They're almost as high as they are in December. But if you look at the deaths, they're way, 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 way higher here. And then over here, they're nowhere near as high, which is good. Everyone here, UK is testing their free test before I go back for Christmas to see family. Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Accusations on their part then, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so my channel is, yeah, it's just like a political commentary, and like I saw Cuties and like just wanted to dive in, obviously. Don't clip that, anybody.
Right.
So my channel is about empathizing with people who have different political beliefs from you. So empathizing across party lines and trying to understand the parts of yourself that you don't like. Wait, am I on camera?
You are on my camera, yes.
Okay. I'm just checking. I'm like trying to figure out what's going on. Yeah, so empathizing across party lines, accepting the parts of yourself that are ugly or difficult or that you hate, to have more empathy for other people. So pedophilia was obviously like an interesting topic for me. I've brought it up a couple times, and I'm planning like a much bigger video on it, because that's one where people have a really hard time. Like they really want to distance themselves from humanizing pedophiles. And your channel, some stuff. Oh yeah, also I'm a rapper. I just came out with a rap album.
Congratulations.
This guy is very bizarre.
Thank you. It's being pretty well received by my core audience, but we'll see how people react to it beyond that. Your channel is pretty partisan.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And it's almost designed to be a pipeline, like kind of the way you talk and interact with people.
Yeah, I would say
right,
so.
Like you're trying to draw people towards your view.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And so, and my channel is kind of the opposite of that. I'm not trying to drive people away from my view, but it's more about like convincing people to understand and empathize with and kind of humanize those that they disagree with the most. And so we're sort of opposed just in terms of approach, and then I think also our beliefs are our values are different too.
Probably. I don't think there's anything antithetical about the positions, though. After all, even if you despise a person and their positions, you have to humanize them because otherwise you alienate yourself from the potential of adopting those views in the future. So, for example, if you completely otherize or
Dude, finds the most. I just love the way that he talks. I'm sorry, it's just so funny to me. He just finds the most unnecessarily verbose way to get across like pretty simple ideas. It's very funny to me. But also, that's so wrong. He's like, oh no, well, we can't otherize people. We have to understand their point of view. Like, we're gonna look silly in the future. Yeah, no fucking shit, Sherlock fucking Holmes. Kind of like you guys have over and over and over again when Biden wins elections, when Rittenhouse gets acquitted, when all these other things happen. Yeah, you've done that like so much. How are you trying to pretend like you're trying to avoid that?
humanize, say, fascists, you make it as though they're not human. Well, unfortunately, humans turn into fascists. So if you treat them in that way, people adopt the impression that, you know, for example, the Nazis are some entirely otherworldly thing, that it's not really a human issue. It's some magical evil that, you know, snatches people in their sleep. So you need to be more nuanced than that so people can understand these problems take root in all of us.
Wow. That was a really good point, Vaush. I wonder if he's heard that somewhere before. It is important to understand other people, not dehumanize them, because when you dehumanize them, you lose the ability to understand that you could become like that. That's probably one of the better points I've heard Vaush give before. Very, very, very well done.
One can be turned into a Nazi given the right circumstances.
Certainly.
Yes, but I think from what I've seen, and tell me if I'm misinterpreting, that you also believe that there's sort of a balancing act of giving, if you give air to Nazism by empathizing with it, or I guess I just think that you speak very dismissively of ideas that you disagree with, particularly ideas that you super disagree with, like Nazism.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, yeah, you can
Right.
speak dismissively of the ideas, but you have to recognize that however malicious the ideas, you know, they can take root in people. And I suppose you can be sympathetic to the circumstances by which a person comes to adopt them, if for no other reason than because that sympathy can help you challenge those ideas, but not the
Right.
ideas themselves.
So I think we do have pretty different values. There's a brief intersection of cordiality where there is moderate disagreement, but it sounds like past that you're comfortable saying fuck Nazis, and I'm not. And then it also, our end goal is different, where I'm not trying to bring people toward my corner to the extent that I even really identify as having a corner.
What is your not corner, then?
Like, I can tell you my stances on various policies, but I think I'm hesitant to really give it a name, even that feels sort of antithetical to what I'm trying to do, right? Like, I kind of want everybody to be an independent in a sense, or a centrist, I guess, where centrist meaning and that you have your stances on individual issues are formed based on your real values and beliefs, and not of those around you, and not from social or political pressure. So I lean into controversial topics on my channel, especially because that's a place for me to sort of, like, one, have something interesting to say that other people might not feel free to say or be willing to say. And then two, it kind of just helps me prove, like, my meta point of, like, you can say, you know, this stuff, and the more of us that speak our minds and don't cave to the pressures of our political groups or our friends or neighbors or whatever, the more free we all are.
Maybe. I'm not value neutral about it, though. I would much rather prefer people cave completely to hegemonic values if they're good ones than freely adopt bad values. I don't think we have to make that choice, though.
Oh God, that's
I
such
think
a
if you have the
horrible.
right information
Oh man, you
and the
can
right
tear into that in
guidance,
so many
people can
different
freely arrive at
ways.
good positions.
I will break that down. So this point is not salient. So it's hard to say that, like, well, I'd be okay with people just thoughtlessly adopting my values instead of thinking for themselves and adopting other values. The reason why this doesn't work is because I think it's predictive of future troubles, right? Like, somebody that's freely adopted a bad value theoretically could be reasoned out of or argued out of that bad value. Whereas somebody that's adopted a value without thought, if it ends up being a bad value in the future, they're never going to leave that value because they got there in a different way, if that makes sense. So like maybe today you've got some people that, you know, they think really hard and they're racist. And you're like, okay, well, you know, that's probably not good. Like we need to find a way to make them not racist. And you should find a way to make them not racist. But the problem is that if they adopt a value of like not racist, but they don't think about it, one, in the future, they're more likely to be like adopting other like positions that could be garbage. And since they're not used to reasoning themselves into positions, they'll get into some other positions that are actual bad in the future. And then two, and this is something I think we've seen a lot happening today, when you adopt a value, you don't really think about it, you have a really difficult time defending it. And I think that that's like a trend that we've seen where people are really bad at defending, like, why should women have equal rights or why should black people have equal rights? Like people just don't even know how to engage with those questions anymore because they're just used to kind of like thoughtlessly adopting values, which I think is a problem.
Yeah, but you're talking them into it. So freely is
You have to talk
loaded.
anyone into anything, don't you? I mean, there's no, you know, bipartisanship.
I guess I'm saying I'm trying to talk people out of stuff, and you're trying to talk people into stuff.
You can talk people out of stuff as well, if it's transphobia or racism or whatever. But of course,
But that's also talking them into. You're trying to move them to a specific.
I don't like this dichotomy that MrGrirl sets up. You're trying to talk people into stuff. I'm trying to talk people out of stuff. Well, technically, you're trying to talk people into thinking independently, right? Now, maybe if we get a little bit more specific, he means like talking them into particular political positions versus out of particular political positions and more into broader like ways to build thought. But
location, and I'm saying I'm trying to actively not do that.
You think there's something wrong with pushing a person towards anti-racism?
Yeah.
Why do you think so?
Okay, I don't know if I'm going to end up agreeing with anything this guy says. And also, this guy might be a genuinely horrible person. I don't know enough about his content. One thing that I find incredibly refreshing, though, is that, like, he, at the very least, he has, like, some ideology, or some, I shouldn't say ideology, actually. He has some, like, core values that he uses to generate conclusions. I very much respect anybody that's, like, willing to bite a bullet on something like that. Like, because if I was arguing with Vaush or anybody else, and I was like, so do you think it's bad then to push people into anti-racist positions? They'd be like, well, it's not necessarily that I necessarily mean it's bad to do. I mean, I don't necessarily mean, well, maybe not, right? Like, they'll never actually like own anything. Whereas you're just like, yeah, that's like, thank God. Like, okay, cool. Now we can move the conversation forward.
I think so.
Well, it depends on how you're pushing them, obviously, but I think that Trump and the anti-SJ.
Do you think Vaush is approaching this in good faith so far? Yeah, it seems like a fine conversation so far. Or I don't hear anything fucked from either side or whatever.
AW anti-woke movement now is a sign that what we thought was working didn't work that well. That we were only giving the appearance of anti-racism and pushing people to give that appearance, and now they don't want to anymore. And I think that's very understandable, and I have a lot of empathy for the backlash. And
What is
I
the
think that
backlash rooted in?
what, like white grievance?
Well, white grievance has been around for a while. You had that back in response to the civil rights movement and stuff even before then, abolitionism. They formed the KKK because of abolitionism, after all. I mean, it seems like the blowback
that's
you're
understandable,
referring to
too.
is an inevitable product of any kind of civil rights push.
I don't think the current backlash is inevitable.
When will you admit that vax is a failure and various indicates they are highly dangerous? When it comes to science and when it comes to medicine, I tend to caveat my statements very carefully because obviously things can be incorrect, that I could be wrong on things. And new information comes out and we have to update our prior beliefs and everything. And if you commit too much or too strongly to one position, it ends up looking really bad in the future. vaccines are one of the SARS-CoV-2 vaccines are one of the few scientific things that I will just wholesale say you are unimaginably fucking wrong. And if you're not convinced at this point, there is no piece of scientific information that will ever convince you of anything ever in your entire life. And you're really not even worth reasoning with. I don't know how else to communicate it to you. There have been like billions of doses, billions of this given out. If you think that it would be possible for any single or even conglomeration of governments to hide negative side effects at this point, you have to take a step back and question, like, the epistemic foundation, right? How do you even figure out what is real? You have to take a step back and think, like, well, how do I know anything? Because you're lost. You're absolutely lost. It's if the vaccines were hurting people or were harmful or had negative side effects, we wouldn't be debating it. It would be like a penis enlargement pill. If there was a pill that actually enlarged to the size of your dick, every single guy would know about it. Every single person would be taking it. Everybody would be advertising it. If people were getting fucked over by the vaccine, everybody would know about it. Everybody would be talking about it. It would there would just be no way to hide it. There have just been so many doses. Never in the history of mankind has a vaccine been given out so much as this one in such a short amount of time. I'm with you, but wouldn't we only know the short-term side effects? In my understanding, somebody can link me if I'm wrong. My understanding is there's never in the history of all of vaccines, there's not a vaccine that is that has side effects past 2 months. If there were side effects, you see them in 2 months. They don't like live in your body and like activate in 6 months like a sleeper cell murder fucking whatever. That's just not how vaccines work. It goes in your body, gets processed, it has its effects, and then you're gone. I don't know of anything that. I'm trying to think from my limited drug knowledge of like illegal drugs. Does anything stay in your body for months and months and months? Is there anything that does that ever? I know you can build up stuff negatively. I guess if you have cancer, cancer will. Oh, a baby can stay in your body for 9 months or 10. Gum. Oh, my grandma used to say that if you eat gum, it'll stay in your stomach for 7 years. Mercury might get stored in fat for a while. That might be true. And then some incurable viruses that hide in immunoprivileged areas. Your eyes, your parts of your brain, I think. There are parts of your body where the immune system isn't allowed to go. But for the most part, I looked this up a couple times. I don't think there are vaccines that have side effects past 2 years. That's just not a thing that happens.
I don't even know if the backlash to abolitionism isn't. Freeing the slaves didn't go that well. Like, there's probably a better way to have done this. I would say that like a war is a good metric for like that rollout didn't work.
Well, it wasn't really a rollout. We had to kill a bunch of folk.
Well, I'm saying maybe we didn't have to.
Well, how do you figure that? The South started the war.
I don't know what we're also the folk that were killed for Americans.
Well, I'm grouping us into anti and pro-slavery here, which I'd happily consider myself part of the we that had to kill them.
Okay, but you see, my theoretical approach to this is entirely different from yours, whereas I think of the South as the we as well.
And what about the slaves? Where do they fit?
They're also the we.
Well, don't you think the we that is the slaves might actually be okay with the fact that we had to fight a civil war to free us?
Yeah, that's my problem. I guess that's what my whole that's why I've come to talk to you, Vaush. That's exactly what I want to talk to you about, because
So there's one big question here. So one is the assumption is that anybody can be moved on a position. This is the only question that Vaush can ask next. I don't know where else this comes in here. So you go, okay, do you think it's possible that there might be some people that can't be moved through like reasoned debate, or that might have other incentives that would prevent them from being moved to a more moral position? Number one. And then number two, if that is the case, is it not more moral to go to war with those people to end an unjust thing rather than to allow it to continue into perpetuity because you can't debate them out of it?
because I don't. I have problems with that. I have problems with righteous anger, righteous violence, righteous killing. It's the same problem you have with people thinking they can never be Nazis. That I think that if you're going to take a life or take many lives, being circumspect about it is important. And looking,
I could be wrong, but I feel like MrGrirl is saying here there are more options than do nothing and go to war. Yeah, but it sounds like what he's getting at is this idea that, like, well, maybe we didn't have to go to war. Like, maybe there could have been, like, a spirited and hearty public debate, and people could have been reasoned out of their pro-slavery positions. But one, you'd have to prove that, which is kind of impossible, unfortunately, because it's history, right? There are no historical counterfactuals, as we say here on the Destiny stream. So you can't really prove that, unfortunately. But then secondly, you must acknowledge that there are probably going to be cases where you ought to act in a certain way, but you have a lot of incentives in the other direction not to. So for instance, if people were all reasonable, you would never have a heroin addict, ever. You just can't, because that's irrational. But there was some incredibly fucking boring behavioral econ paper that we read once, and it gave me a thought tree that was really interesting. I think it was behavioral econ. This is a really complicated paper. I didn't understand a lot of it, but something that I thought was really cool was this is a person right here that doesn't do heroin, okay? So we could either do heroin or not do heroin, okay? Now, if we try heroin, there are two places that we can go. Wait, is my camera blocking this? Hold on. There are two places we can go. We can either become addicted to heroin, or we can just do it once and then leave it, okay? So we start here from a neutral position of we haven't done heroin, okay? Now, we could just never do heroin, but that kind of sucks, right? The best thing would be, what if we could do heroin one time? Or no, what if we try heroin and we only do it one time and then we quit, right? So now we get the experience, we don't get addicted, that's cool. What we don't want to do is do heroin one time and then get addicted, because now we're fucked, right? And the model that this paper kind of laid out is what'll happen is we will make decisions from this point, and we'll say, what we'll try to do is we'll try to say, like, okay, we are going to do heroin one time, and then we are going to quit so that we get the benefit of the experience, and then we don't actually get addicted to heroin. And it's awesome. But the problem is that when we try to make decisions from this perspective, what we don't think of is how our decisions will actually change the type of people that we are, and we're fundamentally a different agent at this node than we are at this node. So the person here might say, okay, I'm going to try heroin one time, and I'm going to enjoy it, and then I'm going to quit, okay? But what happens is once you try the heroin, well, now you are a fundamentally altered agent at this point. Now you're different. And once you're here, well, now quitting heroin actually looks like the garbage choice, and continuing to do it actually looks like the good choice, because getting to this point has kind of like changed our thought process based on the decisions we've made. And this kind of like tree of thinking, is something that has stuck with me for a while. That even if we're in this point, another way that this manifests is sometimes I tell people, when you think about streaming, like, can I handle streaming? Can I handle this or can I handle that? One thing I always tell people is, hey, listen, I know that you think you can do this thing. You can either have a threesome, or you can have an open relationship, or you can, try streaming, or you can be a public figure. I know you think you can do this, but right now you are evaluating this in your best frame of reference, your best state of mind, the happiest you are. You're normal. You're really good right now. But keep in mind that there are going to be days when you do not feel this way. And when you're in those days, in those states of mind, other things can get a lot more difficult. They can get far more difficult than you think they could, because right now you're evaluating them from a positive state of mind. This type of like little decision-making tree is interesting to me. I guess to bring this back to the conversation that we're having, MrGrirl is thinking like, okay, well, here's like a reasonable person. Let's have a debate with them about slavery. Oh, we can reason them out of slavery. We don't have to go to war. But what he's not considering is, well, this person here that is pro-slavery has an entire life, theoretically, that's built around owning slaves. He's highly incentivized in a lot of ways, not just morally, to maintain that system. He's got businesses and jobs. They've got a whole structure culturally to society. They've got like a part of the country that is like literally like embodied by some of the values related to the like whole agricultural section and everything. Like there's a lot at stake here that makes it hard for them to be like, oh, you know what? I see your reason to debate and I'm not going to be pro-slavery anymore, right? It's hard for them to make that decision. Not everybody starts from this kind of like neutral purveyor. Think of truth. Wait, let me make sure I'm using that word correctly. Spreads and ideas. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, close enough. Okay.
Back and saying like, you know, the Civil War was not ideal. It obviously would have been better to convince people.
Ideal. I mean, if you want to look back over everything in history and argue whether or not it was ideal, well, sure.
Fuck, that's such a level 1 brainlet fucking response from Vaush. When MrGrirl is saying it wasn't ideal, he's not saying that it wasn't ideal. He's trying to say that there was a superior alternative, which is what Vaush should be attacking, right? Okay, well, how do you think they should have gone about it better? Do you think the Lincoln debates? Do you think that, his anti-slavery? What Lincoln was?
Sure, it wasn't ideal.
There's weird shit about Liberia. Honest to God, I don't know that much about that time period. I have to go back. I'm pretty sure there was a lot of argument in the country related to slavery and shit at the time. I would have to go back and refresh on it or fresh on it because I don't even know how much I've ever even read about it. But it's on you then to provide like an alternative, saying like, oh well, would this have happened or could this have happened? Was there any evidence it could have happened? Is what he should be pushing on.
I mean, if you want to look back over everything in history and argue whether or not it was ideal, well, sure, it wasn't ideal. Nothing's ideal.
Well, I didn't mean to present that as a binary. I'm saying it went badly.
Well, yeah, they wouldn't give up their slaves. They left the Union.
No, but see, I'm saying if you look at it from my perspective, there's no they. It's just that we were trying to make a change, and we made the change, which was a good change. I'm not pro-slavery, and I'm not anti-abolition. But the way we did the abolition turned out to kill like hundreds of thousands of people or something, like 150,000 or 500,000, like a bunch of people, right?
Not as many as the cost of slavery. How would you have solved things then? I mean, they left the Union, you know.
Again, you're presenting it as, what I'm saying is the dichotomy of continue slavery or end slavery. The way we did it, I'm saying I reject that.
Just well, then how would you have done it?
I would do what I'm doing now. I would try to get people to humanize each other.
What if it doesn't work?
I think that you'll find the slave owners of the South were not amicable to your particular approach. I think they were quite set in their ways.
No one's you're not.
Oh, man. And Vaush, it's so crazy that he absolutely misses everything that he claimed to believe. And the reason why, I'm not going to be very charitable towards Vaush, okay? The reason why is because he copied that position from me. That, hey, it's really good to understand why people are the way they are so that we can understand how we can avoid it and then how to change them out of their positions, right? So the correct answer for Vaush to give here was, well, it's hard to reason them out of their slavery position because there's so much of their society and culture and economy is like built in or has slavery built into it. But instead he counters with the well, they're very set in their ways. Now, I guess if I am being very charitable to Vaush, maybe when he says they're set in their ways, maybe all of that is baked into it. But when he says they're set in their ways, he makes it sound like, well, they actually were like an unchanging, unmovable, massive evil people that could have never been reasoned out of it, which is contradictory to what he said earlier and to what MrGrirl has been arguing as well.
Amicable to your particular approach. I think they were quite set in their
No
ways.
You're not amicable to my approach, and you're far from being a slave owner. No one's amicable to my approach.
Let me ask you more explicitly, okay? So, with regards to the war effort, we could have fought the Civil War or not. Mind you, the South started it, so it's not as though the North had prompted it.
Okay, he keeps saying the South. Fuck, I knew that. I feel like I'm gonna have to open the wiki and start reading. Did the South really start it? Wasn't the North the one trying to make a huge departure from what was previously set as a standard norm in the United States? That slavery was the accepted norm, and then the North wanted to change that pretty significantly. So would you really say that the South started the war? I don't know about that. I'm not sure about that one, but they opened the fire first. Well, I mean, sure, but like, is that really like? That seems like a little reductive, but.
Hold on. So if you were there, I mean, you can say, "Oh, I would have convinced him to stop slavery." But like, if you want to do right, okay, sure, then you could have convinced Hitler to not do the Holocaust, and
I would have done that too.
So is there any utility to your position here, or would you have just been sort of a time-traveling saint?
Oh, come on. No. So the question is do you not think there are some people that can't be convinced? That's the question. And I don't know what MrGrirl's response to be. That's the interesting question. I don't know what this dumb shit is. Fuck, he has such a hard time engaging with people.
Preventing all these atrocities that somehow the world's best statesmen weren't able to prevent in their time.
I don't think that you're being very fair in your setups for these questions.
Saying that you would have debated
yeah.
them out of slaveholding is kind of an odd way of going about it, no?
Well, I only said that because you made me say it. And you want me to keep saying weird shit? You can corner me into saying whatever you want. Yes, I would be a time-traveling saint. And I've traveled here to you, Vaush. I'm here now to work my saintlyhood. And you're going to bear witness to it. And,
all right.
And it's going to change your life.
Then convince me, if you will.
Well, I don't want to convince you. Okay, we can talk about that, but I just want to acknowledge what's happening here. First, I'm just trying to introduce myself. And I'm trying to compare my approach to these general problems to your approach. And then you've led us down this path where now you're saying this incredibly complex thing, a war, with a million different factors leading into it. Then you say, well, what would you have done? Which is a trap. Anything I say, you can point to the other 99,000 factors that caused it and say, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And then we can play ideological.
I don't agree that it's necessarily a trap. I think it's a legitimate question because you're saying war was not the ideal answer. So what would an alternative have been? I think it's a fair question to ask.
Whack-a-mole, but I don't want to do that. One, because I don't think debate is particular. I don't want to debate you.
Well, I just don't see the point then of discussing some historical event and saying, you know, if your commentary in this is, well, I would have preferred a nonviolent solution, I'm sure a great many would have. My issue is that, is the case with, sure, if it could be done, I don't think it could be. That's the issue.
Okay,
I don't think
there we go.
Yeah,
We're back on track.
It's an idealism thing. That's fine. So my point is not to convince you or anybody that there was an alternative. My point is to say, I think there's a different lens through which we can look at historical events that is less us versus them, less good versus evil, with always positioning myself as the good, which you just admitted is not necessarily a good idea to always do that. And to say, what if we look at the way the slaves were freed? In one lens, you can see it as a great success, and in another, you can see it as a momentous failure in how that was accomplished. And I think it's a little self-protective to say, well, no, that's the only way that could have happened.
Well,
I don't know that that's true.
The issue is that what you're saying is meaningless. If your prescription here is that any historical... Hold on. If your prescription here is that we should approach viewing these historical events through the understanding that there was a better way, you could say that about anything under any circumstances. Any set of interpersonal or geopolitical circumstances could have gone better than the way it does. Nothing is ever perfect.
Absolutely. You can always do it better. So my problem is that we do not look at it through that lens.
Everybody looks at it that way. Nobody in the ramp up to the Civil War was thinking, all right, there's only one way of doing this. We're doing the Civil War, or we're not doing shit. Nobody thought that way.
I'm saying looking back.
Looking back, there is no point in thinking of other ways things might have gone through the lens of, well, what if we talked them out of it? Because that didn't happen. People tried, you know. They tried. They left the Union. They made state constitutions specifically enshrining the right to own black folk. I mean,
I don't agree that there's no point in looking back at past events in your life, interpersonally or globally, and thinking about what you could have done better.
Well, what could they have done better leading up to the Civil War?
This is the same thing you just tried to box me into. You know all of the vectors that pushed us exactly where we went, and I agree with you in a sort of fatalistic sense. There was no other way because there's only one reality that can happen, and that's the one that did. And so any factor I
that's not
say,
really
well, what if we nudge this one this way? You're going to say, well, what about this, 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 and this? And it's
The problem is that you're alleging that things that happened weren't really that they weren't ideal, that there should have been another way explored or something. But it seems like we could argue, well, there were other ways explored, but nothing else worked. I think you have to contend with that.
debate. I don't want to debate you about that specifically. If you want to, I mean, it's really a value difference. Like,
What is the
if
value
you-
difference?
that I believe in taking a narrative that we all have, that we're all raised to believe, that abolition was it was a success.
What is a
And
success?
Do you agree with the premise that the Civil War and the freeing of the slaves is generally viewed by Americans as a good thing that happened?
It was better than the alternative, sure.
Do you believe that Americans generally believe that there's a dichotomy of the alternative, continuing slavery, and what happened, war?
Yeah, because that's the dichotomy. It again, like, what do you want kids in history class to go? Well, it would have been better if they'd settled everything peacefully.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just that's such a stupidly naive thing to say that it almost I feel silly even repeating it. It's like, well,
Okay, so with so MrGrirl, this is what he should. When MrGrirl wanted to set a trap for Vaush, this is what MrGrirl should say. So you're saying that if something had to be ended in a violent manner, and we preferred that to the alternatives at the time, then that's kind of like it. The debate is closed, and we just kind of accept that and move on. And then to which Vaush is probably going to start thinking, am I getting trapped? And he's like, and then he'll probably try to caveat a little bit. But Vaush will be like, well, yeah, I think that, we'd exhausted other options, blah, 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 blah. And I don't think it's worth looking back or whatever. Like, couldn't you argue and say, okay, well, then why do people debate still whether or not we should have nuked Japan twice for World War II? Because people still argue that back and forth. But couldn't you use Vaush's same arguments here to hand wave that and say, well, we had to do it. We already did it. We can't do it again. Like, what's the point? Like, it feels like you could, it feels like you could handle, like, I think it's okay to look back on other things and recognize, these things are good, these things are bad, and these things maybe could have been handled differently. Like,
of course, obviously, yes.
Well, your delivery was not very, courteous to me, but that is
it would have
what
been
I'm
better
saying.
if they could have just if there'd been no war and if everything ever could have gone well. But I don't understand what utility looking at this. It doesn't bring us any better understanding of the events at hand, certainly, because it's not pertaining to any specific fact set. You're just talking about it in the abstract. Maybe things could have gone better.
You see, from my point of view, if I'm looking at a country that is increasingly polarized and divided, we agree that that's happening.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm talking to various political people, and I have my own tiny little platform, my soapbox. That for me, if I'm worried about violence breaking out in the street and people increasing animosity that people have been taught historically must lead to violence, or it will lead to their worst fear. It will lead to slavery. It will lead to the Holocaust. It will lead to Jim Crow laws.
We're getting into that
gay
stochastic
people being
terrorism
stoned to
talking
death,
point.
Or I guess conservatives are afraid of the same things, but happening to white people or happening to Christians, or
No
sort
doubt.
of derecognition, or being having communism, having their rights taken away, or whatever. Those are the things that they're afraid of. If everybody approaches this with that lens, which I believe is a false dichotomy, which you're saying is just historical truth, then you can see the utility for me of
we can
bringing
chat
up
when I finish
various
this
events
game.
like the Holocaust, and saying like, turning it over and being like, maybe the way that the Germans were defeated, or that the Jews were, what remained of them were freed, didn't go that well. Like, we won, but like 50 million people died.
What superior military strategies would you have employed on the Western Front to have mitigated the loss of life?
Yes, I understand you I understand. It's the same thing you just did with the Civil War. I understand.
So, okay, so here's Mr. Girl's point. I understand this point, okay? No! How did that just happen? Excuse me? What? So what Mr. Girl's point is that it seems like given a, am I... Jesus. Well, Mr. Girl's point is it seems like as long as there was some type of good outcome, it seems like we're willing to completely and totally hand wave the costs associated with it. So, for instance, let's say that we did World War II and 100 million people died. It sounds like it's probably, well, we'd all be saying like, well, hooray, that was great. That was awesome because we beat the Nazis. And I think what Mr. Girl's arguing is like, well, maybe there was a better way to do it. Or maybe it's not necessarily the best that we celebrate this. It's like, oh my God, this was such a good thing. We did such a good thing. Like, well, maybe it could have been done better. Or the wholesale celebration of this particular thing is maybe missing a bit of the nuance. Maybe. I think that's the point that he's trying to get at here. Thank you.
That you are well-versed in all of the factors leading up to war, and that if any one that I choose, you will bring up 20 more. That's not my point, though.
If you're
my
interested in the mechanisms by which you could avoid large-scale conflict altogether, I think those are worth looking at. But I don't think you have to, I don't know, pontificate alternate histories in order to arrive at that. If you don't want there to be another civil war, then that's fine. But then the question is, well,
I
how
don't
do you
want there to
avoid
be
that?
another civil war.
Well, then how do we avoid that then? I don't want another civil war.
Well, I think that dehumanization is a necessary step in war. And what I'm concerned about is I see that happening when people disagree about political topics. I'm not specifically pointing a finger at you, but I think the discourse on all ends, particularly the further you are toward whatever side you're on, becomes increasingly punch Nazis, fuck Antifa, BLM's a terrorist organization, whatever the talking points are.
Do you think that rhetoric is comparable?
Yes.
How so?
It reads like war propaganda. I just think it's the same thing that you have to convince people of in order to convince them to kill another person. And I don't think we should be doing that.
Well, should it come down to
that's why pedophilia is so attractive to me.
Why does he say things?
Because
I know what he's getting at, but he must know how inflammatory he's being.
It's they're the most dehumanized group. And so if I can get people to empathize with pedophiles, if I had my time machine, this is what I would have fucking been doing before the Civil War. Then if you can empathize with a pedophile, you can empathize with anybody. Or a Nazi. I guess the right hates pedophiles and the left hates Nazis.
Well, it's probably pedophiles
I think
too,
that
I think.
disliking pedophilia is a fairly bipartisan affair, or at least both groups play at it.
There's not a hyper-fixation. There's a fixation. I don't think the right likes fascism either, but there's a fixation on the right with pedophilia, and there's a fixation on the left with Nazis.
I think that these are largely incomparable, in large part because, first of all, I think a lot of the right's opposition to it is projection, a la QAnon. And second of all, I think that
Wait, is he saying a lot of people on the right are pedophiles? Am I reading that correctly? That seems a little bit unfair, I would say. But, okay.
opposition to Nazism is quite justified in almost any form that it takes, constrained only by pragmatism. In fact, I struggle to imagine a scenario in which you would not want children being raised to the tune of fuck Nazis, young people taught why they should hate Nazis in school, Seems like an extraordinary virtuous thing to instill in people.
Well, because
Antifa,
of the reason you
on the
just
other
said
hand,
yourself. Because if you are raised to say fuck Nazis, you're being raised to believe you are not and cannot be a Nazi.
No, I think it's possible to hate Nazis while being sort of understanding of the sociological precursors to it. You know, what leads to it, what
The counter phrase MrGrirl should have here is, well, maybe we shouldn't be hating Nazis. Maybe we should instead be saying hate Nazism. That would be like the counter phrase that you should be looking for.
internal traits to fight against or to
When I
purge.
see hate groups, the groups who hate Jews or black people or gay people, I do not see the kind of socio-political, economic empathy that you're describing there.
Yeah,
To
because I
me,
don't think those are comparable. There's no sociological justification, not prescriptively, for hating Jews, black people, gay people. There's a very good one for hating Nazis. Actually, there are quite a few. So I don't
no,
think...
I'm saying that if you hate black people, if you especially say black looters, that hatred is usually not accompanied by a complex understanding that were you a black poor person with the same social and economic and political pressures on you, you might actually do the exact same thing. To me, hate and empathy are mutually exclusive. I guess just that maybe it's just a semantics thing, but I think raising people to hate Nazis precludes raising people to empathize with our boogeymen.
I think you can empathize with the circumstances by which people become them. But I think there's something categorically different between bigotry against black people or Jews and hating Nazis. In that, at least by the normative standards most people hold themselves to, you can logically justify hating Nazis. Opposition
that's
to
not
or
why-
even violence against them is something that you can construct philosophically and defend at academic levels if you want to. For black people and Jews, that just doesn't track. It's usually biases or...
Is there any way to drop items in this game? Can I drop these items, or do I have to put them in a container and delete it with my inventory full? Sorry.
just emotional hatred that really justifies their beliefs.
Well, I don't think that's true. I think there are legitimate reasons to dislike black people or Jews statistically.
What would those be?
Well, I think it comes down to a combination of being taught to hate, taught to not empathize, and then taught to I guess just a lack of empathy and channeling of blame onto those people. I'm not saying
That I don't disagree with, but that can't be prescriptively justified.
But
you could only say like why somebody is that.
well,
but you
that's what I'm
couldn't
saying is
argue in favor of it.
the mechanism by which you're saying people should be raised to hate Nazis is the same way people are raised to hate blacks and Jews too.
Not at all. They're very, very different.
I guess we might have to just agree to disagree. I believe if you tell your kids to hate somebody, they probably will.
Well, then how can you prescriptively justify hating Jews or black people? So not explain why people hate it, because that's a sociologist's job, why are people the way they are? But prescriptively argue, why should they feel this way or the other? How could you do that with a minority group? Because I can do it easily with Nazis. Nazis' political views make it actually quite easy to hate them.
If you, I mean, any group of people is going to do things that make it easy to hate them.
Prescriptively?
I don't think it.
Did you say
I don't
prescriptively?
to hate them.
Prescriptively?
I don't think it's going to do things that make it
What
easy
does
to
that mean?
hate them.
I don't know what he means by prescriptive.
I don't think it. I don't know what the difference is here because you can just look around and see any group you see. There's going to be a fuck ton of people who hate that group, and if you ask them why, they'll be able to tell you why. And some of the things they'll say will be true, and some of the things they say won't be true. But
what if they so I guess what I'm asking you fundamentally is, do you think there's a difference between a good thing and a bad thing, or a good argument and a bad argument?
I don't think there's a difference between good hate and bad hate.
Okay.
I think that's where our disconnect is.
So
you think it is okay to not empathize with Nazis and to hate them, and I don't.
A slave's hate for his master, then, is to you the same as the master's hate for his slave?
No. To say they're the same, they're not the same because you just changed the roles, so they're not the same at all. Of course they're not.
That's hate.
I'm saying
in both cases there's hate between them. Is that not the same?
that's not a fair question.
Is it I thought you just said that all hate is the same. I'm sorry if I misunderstood.
No, I said I don't think there's a difference between good hate and bad hate.
So do you think those are both bad hates?
Yeah.
Okay. But you think there's a difference between them?
A difference in how easy it is for me to empathize with one versus the other? For sure. It's a lot easier to empathize with a slave hating their master, obviously.
I feel like your association between hate and empathy is tenuous at best. I think it's possible to hate something while still being empathetic. In fact, I think empathy can actually enhance hate to an extent because it demystifies the person and it makes you more familiar with, or at least more receptive to, why they might be what they are, which can only throw the terrible nature of their choices further into the limelight. I don't think
I think when you empathize with somebody, I think it almost by definition becomes more difficult to hate them. I don't know where Vaush got that idea. The most disgusting and detestable people you can become empathetic for. I mean, like, if I were to tell you the story of a guy that starts to, like, fucking make drugs and he throws his whole family under the bus, his actions cause, a brother-in-law to get killed, I think brother-in-law. He alienates his entire family. You're basically responsible for selling drugs to, like, children, essentially, right? Like, this is, like, the story of Breaking Bad. We're empathetic towards Walter White because he's the protagonist of the story, but, told through a history book, he would just look like a wholesale, absolutely horrible, evil person, We always empathize when we get more information about a person because they seem more human to us. But I think that's by... Vaush has always talked like this? Yeah. Do you find hate to be a useful meme socially? Hate is a really good shortcut to critical thinking. Unfortunately, that's what it is. You shouldn't hate anybody. I think, how old did MrGrirl say he was again? MrGrirl just sounds like he's way too optimistic about... Oh, didn't he say he's older than me, 36? He seems way too optimistic about what the, like, ordinary person is capable of thinking about. Hate is just a really good shortcut to a lot of critical thought. It's easier to hate pedophiles than to think, well, some people maybe have a... They're kind of wired to like children in a way that's negative. We should reinforce that, but we also need to treat these people and we demonize them. Blah, blah, blah. Like, it's easier to say, oh, hate these people, whatever, right? Or hate Nazis, or hate conservatives, or hate BLM, or whatever,
So do you have empathy for white supremacists?
By empathy, what do you mean?
You have empathy for white supremacists. The answer should always be yes. You should have empathy for every human, but...
Well, it doesn't matter what I mean. We're both using the word already fine until now. My question is, like, do you have empathy for white supremacists? And you're asking me why, because you're going to say, do I have like a scientific neurobiologist's like dissecting understanding of them? And like, I know you have that, but my question is, do you care?
I'm not as educated as you seem to think I am. There are a bunch of characteristics associated with empathy, some of which I feel for white supremacists and some that I don't. So empathy in that I understand they're humans with fallible decision-making systems. Empathy in the sense that I know if born in the wrong family in the wrong time, I could have had the beliefs they have. Certainly. But empathy...
You care about them.
Yeah, I have to. You have to change their minds. But empathy, I think to you, I think you can have empathy for the Nazis as you bombed Dresden, I think that you could have empathy for the slave master while you break, his farming tools over his head and steal his clothes. I think you could have empathy for your oppressor as you slaughter them.
Okay, okay. The Dresden thing was okay, but then past that, we got into some kind of weird territory, but okay.
I don't think, to me, maybe my definition of empathy is different from yours. It's a consideration.
As you steal their clothes. Do you remember that really fucking weird rant? Wait, am I making this up? Did I dream? Now I'm actually worried that I'm obsessed because maybe I dreamed this because it's actually so weird in my mind. I don't know if I hallucinated or not. Did we listen to Vaush go on some weird rant about how, like, do you think Destiny puts on, like, large clothes and pretends that he's, like, my boyfriend or some weird shit? There was, like, some really fucking weird thing. What am I dropping in space right now? Wait, what the fuck? He did, yeah, okay. Or no, I don't think I was dropping stuff. That was just a ship flying by. Never mind, Jesus.
Of their humanity, but humans do things sometimes that make them worthy of death, at least in our open conflict, if not through the judicial system. So we have different definitions, definitely.
Yeah, but that's not, I don't think that's much of a hindrance. I don't believe that people do things that make them worthy of death. I don't believe in the death penalty.
Not
And
judicially, I agree with you. I think there are better ways there. But, you know, if Auschwitz-Birkenau is being staffed by Nazi guards who will open fire when Allied soldiers approach, I don't see any reason why it's morally wrong to crack a few off before you even approach the camp. Or knowing, for example, that there are supply lines that are, you know, feeding the Western Front that you could bomb and save yourself the trouble in the long run. There are plenty of things that you could do that are justifiable and involve death that are not judicial in nature. Warfare, the Civil War. I mean, they started that war, after all. Kind of brought it on themselves a bit.
And I think it would be better to admit to yourself that you're probably killing a large number of people who don't really deserve to die.
Sure, but deserving there is kind of a tricky word. The better question for me is there a better alternative which hurts fewer people? And with regards to the Civil War, my belief there is no. I think that by the time the North committed to military action, that was the best possible option. And likewise with Nazi Germany. We should have started off way earlier with that one, in fact.
So I understand that's your belief, but do you understand mine?
Well, I think that yours is inapplicable mostly. I don't know how you can make decisions if
Well, whether
you're
you think
always-
it's stupid or naive, I'm asking, do you understand it?
understand
Do
your
you
prescriptions.
understand? Do you understand where I'm coming from?
I understand where you're coming from. I don't know how it can motivate your decisions, though. Like, I don't know what like choices it would lead a person to. Like, how would it influence their behavior?
My behavior?
If you had control over things, you know, I mean, if you had some meaningful power and you could influence the world. I mean, we all do, of course, in our own way, but maybe more. You know, there's never really the ideal option. There are shades of gray, and for me,
Wait, Xanderhall made the same clothes joke after admitting to pre-watching the Vaush video.
I like to my parents always used to buy clothes way too big for me, so it always looked like when I was wearing shirts I was wearing a dress, and I kind of want to imagine, I just kind of want to see Destiny walking around looking like that. Although nowadays Vaush has lost a lot of weight, so he's a lot fitter, but like one of his old shirts, you know, just like Destiny walking around looking like a fucking child. looking like he's wearing hand-me-downs from Goodwill.
I know Quest is that if he does this, he has to buy.
Wait, what is the it's just so weird. That's like a really weird thing to say. Like it feels like an Adult Swim skit. I super don't understand. Or like I'm on Space Ghost Coast to Ghost and Zoltag or somebody's like, or Zoltar is like making some weird fucking joke, and I'm not supposed to understand what is even happening.
My clothes at the sizes
Is it Moltar? It's Moltar and Zorak. That's who it was. Sorry, fuck.
that I've bought them, so they can look like he's wearing his boyfriend's clothing.
Wait, he made aw.
That would be.
That's how you know great minds think alike, chat.
Wait, Xanderhall was pretending that he came up with that on his own. What? This Vaush clip was so weird.
Great minds think alike.
If you're going to be authentic, the pants.
I do think it's hilarious that
That was such a strange rant by Vaush. I want to see him walk around in pants and a shirt. They're just a little bit too big for him. Like, okay. Jesus. He admitted that he pre-watched at the start of the video? Okay, yeah. God damn it, guys. Stop being so fucking creepy, okay? What's wrong with you guys? Hold on, let me get a drink real fast. He made that joke off you saying, what if I dressed like Vaush? Okay, sure, but like, imagine you hear that and you're like, what if they were too long for you and your little body was moving around my apartment in a shirt that was too big with and maybe you weren't wearing anything. And he's like, bro, whoa, what the fuck? Like, chill. What's wrong with you? Watch the actual clip. It's so much worse than you remember. Wait, what? Somebody you can link me the actual clip real quick. I forgot. The Breaking Bad comparison you made you made 10 minutes ago was interesting because I think we do end up hating Walter White in the end, or at least some extent. Oh, maybe. I might actually be a little That's just me. I empathize with Walter. I thought he was a cool dude, but maybe I'm just fucked up.
It almost does feel like a parody. Like it feels like a joke I would make, right? You know, I'd be like, well, the next thing Destiny will do is he'll start copying my outfits to get my attention. But, you know, yeah, my only request is that if he does this, he has to buy my clothes at the sizes that I've bought them, so they can look like he's wearing his boyfriend's clothing. You know, that would be, if you're going to be authentic, right? You know, so the gloves look like oven mitts, and he's wearing like a dress of a shirt and stuff, and the pants are slipping down. Yes. Do you see Destiny's meltdown on Twitter yesterday?
Why? I don't know. Okay.
It's just a matter of what the least gray shade is. I don't think there's an alternative. I feel that way about voting. I feel that way about ethics broadly. So, you know, do I wish things could have been better? Sure, but I know that there's probably not much utility in fixating on that past the point of no return. Right now, we don't need to have a civil war in the United States, right? I mean, we don't have to, I suppose. But one might happen, maybe, and if it is, then...
You know what, Cake? I'm only saying this now because I'm in a good mood, but it's gonna make me hella pissed later. Where is Cake at? You know what change the site needs? The bot needs admin access to the back end. If I try to ban somebody and the thing says that it misses or whatever, their flag should be auto-protected. Their account should be flagged so that it's a protected account for 30 minutes so that I can't reban them if it misses. That would be base as fuck. But if I tried in the heat of the moment, I'd get super mad, but it would be really funny.
But we should be ready for it, shouldn't we? And if it's not, then we should do what we can to prevent it. But I don't think people are gunning for it as though it's a foregone conclusion. At least not yet.
You care about white supremacists or other extreme political opponents of yours beyond your ability to make them into you or like you?
Yeah, I would care about then their ability to hurt me.
Jesus,
And
Vaush.
the people I care about.
I'm talking about Captain Planet, Care Bear, Power Rangers care. You know what I'm asking you?
Care about
Do you care?
like their...
Do you care about them the way you care about like a stray cat on the street?
I suppose.
Meowing.
I hope they have good lives. I don't think there's any utility in their
But do you
suffering.
have an emotional care? Do you know what I'm asking?
It's just an emotional, like, do I feel for them? I suppose. I mean, they languish, I guess, in their ignorance. I think that's unfortunate. But I don't know how relevant
Jesus.
it is. I mean, oh, it's
What?
your laugh? Do you not think they're ignorant with their white supremacy?
No, that's not why he's laughing. He's laughing because you just sound like a fucking sociopath.
I think that if we were like dating or something, and you said, "Max, do you care about me?" and I said, "You languish in your ignorance," I don't think you would say like, "Oh, he cares." So it's not a
Well, I wouldn't date a white supremacist, you know.
well, yeah. I'm not. That's not my point, though. I'm saying. I'm saying, do you care? I feel like the answer is no.
Well, I mean, caring has a lot of definitions, you know.
I'm using the one where you care about.
Okay, clear. Okay, here's something that makes conversation. Okay, hold on. I gotta schedule these Raid Shadow Legends streams again. 27th and 28th at 1300 EST. 27th. Raid stream. Okay, here's why I think here's the best type. Okay, there's like 3 levels of conversation, okay? Level 1 is this person is not good faith, this person is not good faith. I'm not gonna use good faith actually. I'm gonna use a different term. This person's not trying to understand the other person, this person's not trying to understand. So you get things like, I think Nazis are pedophiles. Like, oh, well, I think BLM and Antifa are all horrible terrorists. It's like, well, these guys are worse. They're raping kids. These guys are killing kids. And that's like the whole conversation. Like everybody's totally disconnected. Nobody's hitting anything, okay? It's just like a garbage conversation, okay? The next level of conversation are usually they're the ones that I have, I would hope, where one person at least is making a good faith effort to try to understand the other person. So this guy might say some kind of off the wall shit, and you're like, okay, well, hold on. When you say that, do you mean this or that, or do you mean this or that or that? And then like if one person puts in a lot of effort, usually you can salvage some kind of conversation there and make it okay. And then the ultra high quality, incredibly rare conversations are the ones where both people are making a good faith effort to understand the other person and like integrate what they're saying and then spit them back out in a way that's coherent and meaningful and matching up with what the other person's saying. The conversations I had with MrGrirl I thought were really good. Conversations with like Pisco and Bastia. My Pisco conversations in general are really, really, really good. Where when I argue with Pisco, even though we both adamantly disagree, but like we do about the terrorist thing, we both super disagree, he can listen to what I say and reframe it in a charitable manner or in a way that shows he understands it. I can hear what he says and I'll reframe it, even if it's hurting our ideas, technically our arguments, but we can still understand it, and then have like some conversation, you know, towards building on that. It's really, really hard to do that. It sounds pretty clear to me that what MrGrirl is saying here, now I don't know if this happens because Vaush is playing a game or because he's getting tired of the conversation, but it feels like Vaush is losing patience in the conversation. It's pretty obvious what MrGrirl is saying here. He means like, do you care about them? Like, do you care about them as human beings? Like, if they died, would you be sad? Or are you genuinely invested in their good outcome? Not like they have the capacity to do damage to my person, therefore I am highly motivated to act in a manner extrinsic to myself that optimizes my success. Right? That's not what he's asking. But he's restated like 2 or 3 times. I feel like it's pretty obvious what he's getting at.
A younger sibling, or you care about an old man who's trying to find a seat on the subway.
Yeah,
like the kind of care where, you know, it's not a close interpersonal relationship, but you care about their well-being and you want what's best for them.
My interest in their suffering begins and ends at points where I think it's politically expedient. Anything past that, and I don't benefit at all from them being hurt. And as a general rule, I prefer people to be happy.
Okay. Do you see the difference between that and me saying like I care about Nazis and I care about their feelings and I want to, you know.
Well, it really depends on their feelings, I suppose. But the nebulousness of the term care is doing a lot of work here. I mean, you could
just see that I'm much more warm and fuzzy towards my political enemies or whatever than you are. Like
sure.
Just generally, we can acknowledge that, right?
I think my political enemies well deserve the scorn, you know.
Right, and so you see how that. So again, this is all just part of my introduction. That's the antithetical to what my channel is trying to do. I'm trying to say, give me your Nazis, give me your radical Antifa terrorists, give me your Muslim terrorists, give me your white supremacist, whatever. Whoever's the furthest out. Whoever thinks they're the most hated, pedophiles, everybody's welcome. Let's sit and talk. That's my channel, and it's not about trying to get people to switch sides. It's not about turning people against each other, and it's not about winning. So all that's just to explain.
Okay. Okay, I've gotten this answer twice now. Tell me. I'm sorry. I'm distracted. I won't be distracted anymore. Okay, so somebody just did the thing again where they're like, hey, can we text instead? Why? And this is the second time I've gotten this answer. Is this true? And they said, because texting is easier on my battery. Is that actually true? Do apps drain your phone battery faster than texting? Is that a real thing? I've gotten this answer twice now. I've had people say that, yes, of course. For some apps. Okay, wait, no. Okay, hold on. Let's say that this was true, though. Are you telling me that people actually go into their phone and they're like, okay, well, I texted for 2 hours today and I was on Twitter DMs for 3 hours and I looked at my battery life and I can actually tell blah, blah, blah. There's no shot that you guys even know, even if it was true. How would you know this? I just don't understand it. I've never understood it. Probably just noticed it randomly. Yo, bro, it makes a huge difference. You can just tell. I have a shitty phone and WhatsApp drains my battery pretty hard. No one knows this, they're lying. iPhones teach you app battery usage. I feel like that last percent of battery lasts longer than the others. There's no way of knowing. Maybe. Makes no sense. The screen time drains more battery than a call. You can check phone battery level usage for other apps. The screen being on uses more battery than anything. Apps pulling info in the background use some, but it's negligible. Games or text take very little time, but constantly searching for service. If you're in a shitty area, will clear your phone super fast. All right. I don't know. You guys are weird. This is a vestige of the past, okay? You guys are just fucking weird, all right?
Where I'm coming from. Do you still want to discuss one of these 3 topics?
I'm not going anywhere. Sure.
Well, I was more asking if
one thing that triggers the fuck out of me, and I understand why they're doing this here, but I hate it when we move on from a topic when we haven't reached some level of agreement. That actually triggers the ever-living fuck out of me, and it's happening now. It's just happening with these two. They're moving on to the topic, even though they clearly didn't agree with the last thing. But
are you going to eject me, or are we?
No, I'm not ejecting you. I just don't know. I mean, you know, you can treat it all with compassion if you want. I distinguish critically between good things and bad things. I actually think that's a very, very important distinction.
I hate that begging the question. I distinguish between good things and bad. Yeah, everybody does, but that, like, you have to be a little bit more precise, my dude. Come on.
Yeah. And I think I don't as much.
Right. Well, I guess that's a way of thinking of things. Sure. Yeah. With that in mind, though, I have no idea what kind of prescriptive statements you could ever make on any issue if you don't distinguish between good and bad things and just sort of ubiquitously believe all people deserve consideration regardless of the morality of their positions. I don't know where you'd go from there.
I guess that's just not my compass by which I would make prescriptive statements or have preferences. I guess I think more of it as preferences. Like, you know, if I see somebody riding their bike and then somebody says, "Do you want that person to get hit by a car?" I will say no, because I don't want it. It's not a philosophical stance. So I don't. Well, let's just see what happens.
Yeah, I'm
so
not going anywhere.
Do you want to pick one of these topics? Should we let the chat pick one?
No, dealer's choice. What do you have the strongest opinions on?
Are you sure? I don't think I'm the dealer, but I get what you're saying. Well, I just talked to Destiny about gender for a long time the other day.
Well, then perhaps out of respect for the people who watch both of our channels, the poor bastards, you should talk about BLM or something else.
Something else, meaning pedophilia.
Or that.
Jesus.
Well, it's yeah, I think your stances on pedophilia are going to be more controversial than mine. If you're still sticking to there shouldn't be, what'd you say? I've seen no moral or legal argument about why child porn should be illegal. And a lot of people
Can I say this? One of the things that harms most of the discourse surrounding pedophilia is that we should have never allowed people to say that sex with minors is pedophilia, because pedophilia and sex with minors are two totally not related things. These have nothing to do with each other. A minor is somebody that the state has decided is not old enough to consent to different types of contracts or sexual intercourse. Or I'm sure there are other things that come with the age of majority as well, is what it's called, right? Pedophilia very specifically means that you are attracted to somebody who isn't exhibiting secondary sexual characteristics, right? So I think this is right. A primary sexual characteristic is like a dick or a vagina. Secondary sexual characteristics are when we are dimorphic, so we're all similar. Then we go through puberty, and in puberty, certain things are exaggerated between the two of us, men and women in general. Women tend to have different body shapes. They get boobs, they get butts. Men will get hair. They look a little bit more rugged, maybe facial hair, maybe more whatever. These secondary sexual characteristics are what we tend to be attracted to sexually as healthy, mentally rigorous, whatever, resilient human beings. Not resilient, but like healthy human beings. Secondary sexual characteristics are what we're supposed to be attracted to if everything is working properly. Now, a pedophile is attracted to somebody that is not exhibiting secondary sexual characteristics, somebody that looks like a child, which is not, that's a misfire. You're not supposed to have that attraction. So when somebody is like 17 and they have like boobs and a butt, and somebody's like, oh wow, that person's like really hot, that's not a pedophile. You're allowed to find whoever you want attractive. The problem is acting on those urges for a minor, assuming you're not like 18 or 19 or whatever, assuming you're an adult or whatever, is there's like an unhealthy power dynamic that theoretically could be created, or there's a very, very, very large possibility or probability even for an unhealthy relationship to take place there that is exploitative. But it has nothing to do with pedophilia. Right, a 30-year-old, trying to fuck somebody. That has nothing to do with pedophilia. It's not that just isn't the same thing. It has nothing to do with it. And I think that sometimes when you conflate all these terms, this is why. When you conflate these terms, it just leads people to thinking really weird things. This is why you get into the weird area where like, is a 19-year-old fucking a 17-year-old? Is that guy a pedophile? Right? It's like, no, this isn't what pedophilia means. It's not at all the same. It doesn't mean anything. Or like if you're attracted to like a 15 or 16-year-old develops really early, and then you find out later like, oh my god, that person, I thought they were 20, they're actually 16. Oh my god, am I a pedophile? Like, that's not what any of these things mean. It's frustrating to me that these two terms are like conflated so much, because it destroys like all of this conversation. It's like really weird. But okay, let's go.
I think I'm a pedophile, so I could do like a little PR repair by arguing against you there.
I think that.
So would you call someone attracted to non-mature bodies but are immediately turned off if they are made aware if they're under 18 a pedophile? So yes. Yeah. So, in my opinion, I bet I could get one psychologist to want to come on here to do this, okay? Women that do things, the Nico girls are a really good example of this, of dressing like a kid, trying not to look very like womanly, but very childlike, the very like circular faces and the red thing to make yourself look like a kid, blah, 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 blah. I think that is pedo baiting. 100%. And I think that if you are attracted to that, I think that you have degrees of pedophilia inside of you. That is not how your brain is supposed to be wired to be attracted towards women. If you are attracted towards people that look and act like children, I think that you have some amount of pedophilia going on in your brain, even if that person is 20, 25, 30 years old. I think it is incredibly fucking weird, and I don't think it should be encouraged, and I think that the people that do it are pedo baiting, 100%. That is the easiest bullet to bite in my entire fucking life. I'll bite it every fucking time.
My views on the subject are quite a lot less controversial than most people believe. I think I was making a very spicy argument against unethical commodity consumption that has been wildly misinterpreted. Such is life.
Oh yeah, I know what argument you were making, but well, I've heard two quotes. Okay, let's talk about pedophilia, because I'm getting ready to make a big video about pedophilia, I think, in the next few months, and I think, chewing over some of the ideas with you might be a good idea. And it probably won't.
Destiny, shut the fuck up. Our brains are wired to fuck. It's about a society because we've accepted a society that is harmful. No, I just don't believe that is the case. I think that I do not believe that your brain is naturally wired to want to fuck somebody that is prepubescent, that isn't exhibiting secondary sexual characteristics. If you, and I say this with all empathy and whatever, and hopefully you get help or find help or whatever, but if you look at a child and if you see a girl and she's like clearly like this girl is 9 years old and you feel some level of sexual attraction there, you should talk to somebody or be aware that is not normal. There shouldn't be anything there for you to be sexually attracted to. It's just not. You just shouldn't have it. What you're wired to be sexually attracted to are not flat bodies and childlike faces. The wiring there should be for like booties and boobs and like hourglass figures and feminine shit, like the stuff that happens during and post puberty. That's what you are supposed to be wired to liking naturally. Destiny, far cry between liking 9-year-olds and liking smaller tits, Jesus Christ. Hey, if you're not understanding what I'm saying, go be a pedophile somewhere else. It's very clear what I'm saying. I've dated women with very small boobs. I like small boobs. I think they're hot. There's a big difference, though. You're coping 1,000,000% if you think that liking small boobs and women that act like children are the same fucking thing. You're dead wrong. You're absolutely wrong. You're pedophile in denial. That's okay. That's fine. You can find help. Keep subbing to me. Do what you want, okay? But there is absolutely difference, okay? I dated 2 girls publicly on stream that both had smaller boobies, and neither of them looked anything like a fucking child. They didn't look like children. They didn't act like children, okay? There's a huge fucking difference between like they have small boobs versus they try to be childlike and they filter their face to have bigger, smoother, rounder faces, and they dress up in little school skirts and they act like children. Like there's a huge fucking difference between these two things, okay? Destiny, so as a girl without an hourglass figure or big tits, my partner is now a pedo. Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. Alexandria, call the police right now. You got me. That's exactly what I said. The only 2 ways that people can look like adult. I'm just giving you examples. There are tons of different changes that your body goes through. The shapes of faces get different post-puberty, right? I keep pointing out there's like the circle face or whatever. Like children tend to have like rounder, smoother faces. The structures of the bones and the shapes of the I don't know if I think if you had like a silhouette of like an 8-year-old boy versus an 8-year-old girl, I don't think you could tell. But for a woman versus a man, you can. Like an adult versus a child, the proportions are just different. Bodies look different. Like the skeletal system changes. The shapes of the people change like they do. Destiny, acting childlike just sounds like women trying to be pretty. All right. Listen, I wish you and your boyfriend the best of luck, okay? I triggered all the weebs in chat, true.
Won't do anything for my image now that I'm thinking through what I'm saying. Okay, so do you want to explain yourself, Vaush?
Oh, it's probably nothing my community hasn't heard, and also probably nothing you've not heard. But
my understanding
I
is
think
that you were saying
bad
if we're
to
gonna
have sex with children. It's a hot
Yes,
take
I
in
know.
some.
God, it's such a boring take. I hate. Don't give boring takes like this. God, engage with the conversation, or just say you don't want to talk about it. Jesus.
Circles, anime lovers, and the like, but you know.
My understanding is that your stance is that if you're gonna say it's okay to indirectly use child slave labor, then child porn is not that different. And that it's hypocritical.
My stance is that society has taken the easy route by denouncing an element of unethical consumption that they can all very easily agree is terrible, as it is.
Yes.
And that they have been very, very deliberately silent in other ways in which children are hurt.
You're saying they're both bad, not that they're both good, obviously.
That's correct.
Or that one is good. Yeah, I got that.
Quite happy that one of the two, at the very least, is currently criminalized.
Okay. Do you think owning child porn should be a crime?
Yeah. Might as well, right? I mean, we've already done the work on that one. No sense in undoing it.
Okay. Let's go to other. Do you think pedophilia, to any extent, is a sexual orientation?
I'm not entirely sure what the DSM's definition of a sexual orientation is.
Well, let's say we're writing the DSM.
I think it's categorically different from heterosexuality, homosexuality, or anything else like that.
This is such a challenging question to engage in. So I'll bite the bullet on this. These are really hard conversations. It's probably more akin to an orientation, but the problem is nobody wants to hear that because then it sounds like you're saying that like people being gay is the same as people being pedophiles, and nobody wants to ever like make that concession ever. But the chances are all of our sexual urges are probably pretty ingrained. They're pretty ingrained in us, pretty hard to move. Whether you're gay or whether you're a pedophile, you know, like people will talk about how like for trans people, we're not doing conversion therapy anymore because it doesn't work. For gay people, we're not doing conversion therapy anymore because it doesn't work, okay? But for pedophiles, my understanding, and if somebody has contrary research, I'd love to see it because it'd be cool to not have this opinion. But for pedophiles, I don't think it works either. I don't think that I think that you can get a pedophile to not offend, which is good. You don't want children getting raped. But I don't think that there's like successful research on like, oh, this is how we get pedophiles to stop being attracted to children. Like that is a really hard like ingrained thing in a person's brain, and it's really hard to just move a person off of that. The same that it's hard to get a person to stop being gay or stop being trans, you know?
Do you think it is, to any extent, do you think it is the same as any of those things?
I mean, I suppose it manages people's attraction towards others, but apart from that, and I don't even think that's the critical point, right?
What is chemical castration? Do they pour acid in your dick? First of all, if you want to know what it is, couldn't you literally just look this up? Why would you ask me? And secondly, no, my understanding is you just like, it's either an injection, not like in your balls or whatever, but it's like you take a chemical, like it might even be a pill that makes it so that your libido goes away, basically. But it's not, I don't think it's permanent. Generally, there might be some forms of it that are permanent, but.
So do you see any utility in labeling it as a sexual
The Shang-Chi actor Simu Liu had the same take as you before and got in trouble for it. Cool.
orientation?
No, I think it'd be the opposite of utility. The medical terminology is geared around the relationship between our brains and normative social behavior. Mental illnesses, after all, are defined as things that cause us harm in society. They prevent us from functioning normally. And I think that pedophilia, as you might guess, prevents one from functioning normally, to not put too fine a point on it. A sexual orientation should be something normal and healthy, but pedophilia can never be that. So a paraphilia is what it should be defined as. And I think that is what it's defined as presently.
I believe it is. Do you think that there is any utility in thinking of it as functioning like a sexual orientation? I'm not talking, when I ask this question, I'm saying, let me rephrase it. To what extent and why do you think it is a good idea to label it as a sexual orientation in various situations? For example, if you're trying to empathize with a pedophile, or if you're trying to understand that this conversion therapy might not work for this person, or that this person, yes, should be treated as though they're mentally ill or receive treatment for whatever, blah, blah, but also it should be seen as this kind of like immutable part of themselves that they and maybe others are just going to have to live with.
No, because I think even if empathy was your goal, and one which could be, I think in some circumstances, quite suspect, depending on the relevant intentions, you can still be empathetic towards a person with a mental illness. You'd still define it as something socially non-normative, something destructive and harmful. By referring to it as a paraphilia, as opposed to a sexuality, you normalize its unhealthy relationship with social function, which I think is good, Because, of course, if you call it a sexuality...
good.
As to not refer to it as a sexuality, yes, I think it's bad to refer to it as a sexuality.
But I'm saying you think...
Hold on, real quick, guys. Important question. How the fuck can I burn off all of my extra goddamn hydrogen? I think I fucked up by making... I shouldn't be making graphite. I just shouldn't be making graphite with oil, huh? I should just use coal. That's what I should do, huh? Is that the answer? Make a hydrogen collider. Oh shit, I haven't done that yet. Okay, never mind. I'm still teching then. Okay, sorry.
I think it's purely bad. Like, there's no ever reason to ever think about it like that at all, no matter what.
Suppose if aliens had a gun to your head and told you they'd shoot you if you didn't change your definitions? I mean, you could always find some edge case. As a social rule, though, overwhelmingly...
Well, I'm asking you to search your heart and see if there is an edge case in there. And if you don't find one, then sure. But that's what I'm asking you about the edge cases. And something more realistic than the alien scenario.
I can't think of one. The alien scenario was my honest-to-God best effort. I don't think that there's any reason to. Even if your goal was empathy or, corrective treatment or anything like that, I still think that you would have to refer to it as paraphilia. I think there'd be more utility in that. I don't know what utility there'd be in the opposite, really.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were a therapist, right? I mean, if, for example, if you go into therapy and you say, I think I might have this, that, or the other, it's quite bad, they'll refer to it as a paraphilia, but I don't think that's antithetical to their goal of treating or mitigating, your non-normative or harmful sexual desires. I think those are in line.
Normative does not mean normal, also, by the way. People like to say normative because it sounds way smarter than normal, okay? They're not the same thing, all right? This is normative in society. That's not what normative means. Okay, sorry. Anyway.
Is it ever good to if you're a pedophile to stop thinking of yourself as sick? To if you can't fix it.
You can't fix it. I don't know.
Like you're supposed to just accept that it's a paraphilia. I guess that there's something wrong with you. That there always will be.
Yeah, well, I think sickness is kind of vague there. You have to accept that it's always going to be a harmful part of you. If it's something that you can't fix, I mean, you know, what is or isn't a sickness? That encompasses a lot of stuff. You know, having the sniffles is a sickness. In this case, it would be, you know, having a predatory desire or having a, you know, a predilection towards predation or something like that. That goes beyond sickness. I mean, sickness isn't necessarily socially wrong. This would be a, you know, some people have a compulsive violent thoughts, for example. I know that's a thing. Like some schizophrenics might have that, for example. If they want to go with sickness as the word they'd use there, then fine. I mean, the important part is that they know those thoughts are never acceptable, something they should act on.
Wait, hold on. Never mind. I just looked it up. Apparently, how fucking confusing. Never mind. I guess you can use normative to just mean norms. Social norms. Oh, okay, weird. It means something different in philosophy. So that's very weird that there is a layman's version of it and a philosophical version of it. I just looked it up to check, so I guess I misinformation. The Taliban strikes again.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I agree with you. What other contentious questions are raised about this? Simulate. Wait, I'm going to change my headphones.
How many people, generally speaking, do you think have some sort of pedophilic tendencies, as in not being a full-blown pedophile that exclusively is attracted to childlike figures with no secondary sexual characteristics, but maybe something like finding some attraction in some neotenous features? Well, I mean, like, there are probably some features that are quote-unquote childlike that we find attractive because women tend to develop in certain ways. So, like, smooth skin is like a childlike thing, but we find that attractive in women. There's probably going to be, like, a little bit of crossover, but it should be pretty obvious, like, whether the attraction is pedophilia or not. I would imagine so.
Because my headphones are dying.
Been known to happen.
Yeah. Okay, can I still hear you?
I can hear you.
Oh, maybe not. Oh, I have to change them in Discord. Hang on.
Ah.
I forgot. Okay. Nice. Okay. Next question. Simulated child porn lolly stuff.
Jesus,
I think
these
it's
are
pretty sussy.
What is that?
It's like the
I think that if you have an interest in that sort of stuff,
all
you
the
should
topics
definitely
you should
check
probably
yourselves
stay the
to
fuck
why.
away from.
You know, like, the thing that really bothers me about this shit, apart from the fact that anytime you want to look at like hentai on a hentai site, you have to like negate the tag lolly and thus 50% of the site's content. The thing that bothers me is people who pretend there's no relationship whatsoever between like drawn lolly shit and actual attraction to children. Because of course there's a relationship between those things. Ridiculous to pretend otherwise. So they need to be aware of that, if anything.
Are you saying that based on common sense, or is there any evidence of that?
Any evidence of that? You mean, okay, so I've had a bunch of links thrown at me by people who are, again, very sussy, trying to argue there's not actually a relationship between instances of child predation and access to like lolicon or whatever.
Well, I would assume there is a correlation between people who really want to believe that and people who are pedophiles. So
yeah, I'd be willing to bet that.
For sure that I'm going to agree with you there, but just you where you're at now. I'm saying, are you arriving at that because of like some study I don't know about, or you just think it's obvious?
It's not a study that I'm not speaking on this through a study you're not aware of. I think it's categorical. I think that the fetishization of youth, to the extent that you're fetishizing the bodies or mentalities of underage people, is categorically harmful. Because even if somehow, and I don't know if there's any research indicating this, even if somehow you could find that there was zero correlation between any criminal behavior there at all, and you know, the widespread consumption of hentai, lolicon, whatever, you know, I still think that it normalizes quite negative things, you know. Or to put it another way, like if I was a kid again, you know, and I'm not, and I like found my dad like looking at like fucking big honkin' Hooters porn one day or some shit like that, like that'd be awkward as hell. But you know, life goes on. The sun rises in the morning. But if I like walked into my parents, like, or whatever else, consuming like lolly or Shotokan or some shit like that, I think that would irreparably damage my trust in them. That there'd be some fundamental, like forevermore, some disconnect between them and my ability to trust them.
Oh God, there are so many hard questions that MrGrirl can follow us. I wonder if he'll hit any of them. Are you saying that people that exhibit certain fetishes shouldn't be allowed to because of a potential negative carryover in real life? So for instance, Vaush, I'm pretty sure in the past, haven't you defended some sexual kinks related to, say, like race play? Let's say that somebody stumbled upon somebody that they realized or they found out inadvertently engaged in race play in the bedroom. Are those people that you should be uncomfortable around, that you should avoid? Or what about other forms of fetishes that have like power dynamics? Like what about he probably would say this. There's something called DDLG for daddy, dumb, little girl, I think. For people that engage in that, is that essentially the same thing as pedophilia? Should you feel uncomfortable around those types of people? There are a lot of like edgy, like more like psychological, sexual kinks, more hardcore ones that people get involved in. Are these people that we ought to feel like afraid of or stay away from? Or yeah, what about like consensual non-consent? Do we worry about them being potential rapists? And if not, like what's the difference here, right? If we accept the idea that an attraction of childlike features is pedophilia or pedophilic thoughts, does this trap people with schoolgirl fetishes into pedophilia? I mean, like, it depends. Technically, we should back up, and we can have a broader conversation where I think that there are some. Oh man, how edgy do I want to be here? I feel like there are some forms of pedophilia that are socially enforced. I think that men in general like women that act like children. So socially, men are pushed to like women that are stupid, that act like naive and innocent, that look very young and kind of bimbo-y. I would say that socially speaking, I think that men in general are pushed towards liking that and push each other towards liking that. And then so some women will exhibit it, which I think is bad and dumb. I don't know if I'd call you a pedophile for it. So I will say that one thing. But then on the second side, I will say that like when we talk about liking schoolgirls, okay, like I went to a Catholic school for 12 years, 2 different Catholic schools, right? There were schoolgirls in 4th grade that wore like skirts and stuff. And when I think of them, I think of like little girls that had boogers and food and shit on their clothes. That's not like an attractive like schoolgirl. And then I think of like the schoolgirls when I was in high school, when I was 18, or I would say when I was 17, because I dated a girl, my first wife, who are like, they have boobs, they've got nice legs, they wear skirts, they look sexy. These are 2 very different types of schoolgirls, right? There is a schoolgirl that's like, wow, you go to school, you wear skirts and shit, you're really hot. And then there's like, you're 9 years old. I think that these 2 things are very separate things. And I mean, even as far as anime goes, they're 2 very separate things. If you look at like Steins Gate, right, you could argue that like the Kurisu girl or whatever, that's like a schoolgirl. I think they're either in high school or college. I don't remember. Every fucking anime person is a senior in high school. But like, she has like boobs. She looks like an adult, more or less. And then you got people like the Marisu, I think, right? Is that the girl's name? Or who acts like a dumb kid and is like a blah, blah, blah. Although she has huge knockers, which is kind of strange. Is it Makise? Makise? I don't remember their name. Mariu? I don't remember names. There's probably a better example of. I don't watch any of the slice of life fucking child animes though, so I can't give you examples. Marushi, but I'm sure there are. You guys watch these weird fucking animes, okay? There are like schoolgirls that are like 9, and then there are schoolgirls that are like adults. They're like 18, you know.
And I think there's reason for that. It's not just like
I don't think we should get too personal here.
Well, I'm just trying to explain that without working on data here, I feel like it's just bad to fetishize that kind of stuff. We fetishize the fuck, for instance, out of female youth. You know, we do it to men too, to an extent.
Oh shit. Oh god, I pre-watched. I'm giving the Vaush thing. I know.
But mostly to women, and this like evolves in so many creepy ways that things don't even get talked about, like child beauty pageants, or this the obsession with like
That's
barely
essentially
legal
porn. Barely
yeah
legal.
So it's holistic. It's not just lolly or shota, though I think that's, you know, a particularly egregious outcropping of it. I think it's just this whole like long-standing global infatuation with young women, I guess youth in general, but the lolly stuff's more of a problem than the shota stuff, and I think that should stop. It's probably pretty bad, you know.
Stop. And you think it should stop by what mechanism?
Culturally, I think it has to be opposed. So like
Okay, so it should be legal, but we should be like, hey,
you could raise,
hey, Dad, don't do that.
well, I'd hope I'd say that. You can raise the age of consent to 25, but then there would be like barely legal 25-year-old girl porn. Like that's going to remain no matter what like you legislate around it. And you can do whatever you want with lolly or shota, but then people are going to draw 1,000-year-old
Oh fuck, Melina. Goodbye. I'll see you in 2 years.
girls who just happen to have the bodies of 10
Okay.
year olds. You can always
Here's the
work your
thought.
way around that crap.
Here's a thought experiment.
Okay. Thought experiment.
I'm gonna open a string of strip clubs in Las Vegas. It's gonna be called MrGrirl's Whatever You Want Emporium. Okay.
Oh Jesus Christ.
In one strip club, the strippers are 25, 24, 23, 22, all the way down to infants. But each strip club, and this is a
Oh my
this
god.
is a sovereign state, so there's no laws. In each club, everyone is the same age. Okay, so if you want to watch babies crawl around, or you want to watch 100-year-olds, we'll start at 100. So basically, everybody and everybody all the women on the planet have to work here. My question is, in America now, which club do you think would be the most popular if this were to open tomorrow?
Oh man. I honestly I think it would be depending on how large I can bracket the ages, it'd probably be, my guess is like 16 to 22. It would be in that age range. That'd be my guess. Maybe 15 to 20. It would probably be in that. The median would probably hit right around 18 or maybe a year or two younger. Maybe. It would depend. I think you're 100% right, yeah. The thing is, though, is that it super depends on... it super depends on the girl. Like, 2-7... Like... No, actually by 17, 18, most people are like pretty well into puberty, actually. It's grade school is when people start and having... It'd probably be around... I would guess 17, 18. That'd be my guess. Yeah, probably. It'd probably be that. What if you could pick a single number? If I had to pick a single number and bet my life on it, I'd probably say 17. I'd probably say. That'd be my guess.
In a sovereign state adjacent to America.
Yeah, and it's there's no one identities are there's no issues of social ostracization. Nobody knows. Everybody's wearing whatever disguises.
What do you base that belief off of? So in terms of like what men find attractive, you want the secondary sexual characteristics to be as developed as possible, but you still want them to be as youthful as possible. So like 17 years old, they've got their boobs, they've got their ass, they're still young as fuck. That's like the ideal like guy like jerk off fantasy or whatever. And before there's a Vaush thread and they're all like, I actually only masturbate to girls when I've seen the certificate and I know that they're 32 because I'm actually 34 and I couldn't imagine jerking off to a girl that's less than 31 years of age. That's disgusting, right? But
the closest
Not
argument you
strippers.
could make there, I think, is from European literature from ye olden days. And it seems like predation against girls spiked up around like 14 to 16. So if you could, if all the
just looking
degenerate
around
sex
you-
tourists,
Yeah, looking around you at America now. I want you to base this just on your sense. You know a lot of people.
oh, okay, this is a little bit better, I guess. Guys like women in their early 20s, regardless of how old they get. Maybe early 20s then? Maybe it wouldn't be 17. Maybe it would be like early 20s more. I know that there was I only remember this because it's on Wikipedia, and I don't remember what it cites, but I think Wikipedia has a source of like the largest database, or their source is it, and it's supposed to be like the ideal age to date somebody. And I thought it was, for women in Wikipedia, I think it was 24, and for men, I think it was 30. Does anybody know which Wikipedia article that was? And then I could look up like what it was citing there. The problem is that the scale doesn't go below 20. I still think it'd be like 20 to 24. If you really wanted to do a study like this, I don't know if it would be ethical, but if you really wanted to do a study like this, you shouldn't do age self-report. You should just have pictures and have people rank them. Oh, is this it? Age disparity. Oh, wow. Look, you got right to the part or whatever. Let's see if I remember this correctly. Cross-cultural differences. Okay, the preferred age of females is 24.8 years, and the actual average age of females marry is 25.3 years, and 28.2 for males, which actually falls directly in the age where females are most fertile. However, this seems people are having children immediately after marrying. Okay, so maybe for men it was a bit younger. 28.2 for men and 24.8 for women. Oh, and then you can see husband and wife within 1 year of each other is 34%. And then this is like husband older than the wife. And then this is wife older than the husband. Tends to be quite a bit more rare. Interesting. Okay.
You talk to a lot of people about this. And we all.
You know, I haven't talked to a lot of people about this specifically. I'm going to.
Okay. Well, we run in different circles, but based on your observations of American humans, which club is the most popular? Let's say men, straight men are going, and they're women.
Culturally, I don't think that we've done anything to appropriately discourage that kind of predatory behavior towards girls.
It's so boring. Vaush keeps talking about this like predatory, but that's not really what MrGrirl is getting at. Like, engage with like the basic biological question. It's not like predatory. Like, technically, just looking at somebody and being sexually to them, that in and of itself isn't predatory yet. There has to be an actual action taken for it to become predatory. I don't even know if he knows that, but.
So my guess is that it would be somewhere between 14 to 17.
Jeez, damn! Vaush goes lower than we did. Oh my god. Okay.
I think that culturally we've done
one-way mirror. The girls
little.
don't know. The girls don't know that you're. Is it even predatory to go look at them? They don't know that you're looking at them.
I would say that it's predatory.
It's a website where you can log in and.
Oh man, it's at this. Oh. This is where RGR comes from the rafters. Wait a second, Vaush. Looking at somebody and sexualizing them is predatory, even if you don't actually take a step to do anything towards them at all? Is that actually true? Just looking at somebody is predatory? Because this is inconsistent with the argument that he gave with RGR. Vaush, if you're watching, here's the argument that I always give. Sexualizing somebody is never wrong because that's in your mind. Objectifying somebody and making them aware of it somehow, that's when it becomes wrong. If you want to jerk off to 50 million people out your window, knock yourself out. But if you go and you tell them about it, or you start trying to communicate with them about it, well, now you've made it their problem, right? Sexualization happens in the mind, objectification happens in the world. Don't objectify people, but if you want to sexualize someone, fucking jerk off all you want. But for Vaush to say it's wrong to even look is interesting. Now, maybe there's like a special mitigating caveat here because they're underage, but this is going to be, that's a very tricky argument to navigate. Let's see.
That it's predatory.
It's a website where you can log in and look at locker rooms. Just forget the slavery aspect.
I would continue to believe that's predatory.
Yeah, for sure. But much harder type of predatory behavior to discourage if no one will ever know that camera was there.
If you put a camera in an underage girl's locker room and the police found it, I assure you that they would be able to.
Oh my God, MrGrirl doesn't realize how much he could be hitting on here too. Because when MrGrirl says, when you put in a camera in a locker room and no one will ever know, this actually is perfectly subsumed within Vaush's strict consequentialist moral framework. Because Vaush all the time says, well, I'm only concerned about creating more or less utility in the world. I'm only concerned about outcomes. Because he's not a deontologist. He professes this every fucking chance he gets the opportunity to talk about normative ethics. I'm not a deontologist. I don't believe deontologically anything is wrong. Okay, well, what if you put a camera in a locker room and nobody knows? There's no harm being committed there. They don't actually know about it, right? Why are you talking about if a police captures a camera in a hypothetical? That's not at all answering the hypothetical. That's nothing to do with the hypothetical, right? Oh, but Mr. Girl doesn't even realize all of this. It's such a good challenge to Vaush's consequentialist system, right? If you can do something that a lot of people intuitively feel is bad, but there's no actual harm being committed, is it actually bad? If you're a strict consequentialist, how do you build that out as being a bad thing, Vaush?
Very quickly, succinctly, and with great confidence explain to you what you did wrong.
All right, then I have to go take care of something.
Succinctly, girl's locker room.
That was an edgy
Because that
joke.
camera was there.
If you put a camera in an underage girl's locker room and the police found it, I assure you that they would be able to very quickly, succinctly, and with great confidence explain to you what you did wrong.
All right, then I have to go take care of something. No, I'm just kidding. All right, what if, okay, motherfucker, you're adding all this shit in. I want you to...
I'm not. Okay. If you're trying to catch me in a hot take, it's not.
So Mr. Girl is getting frustrated because Vaush isn't engaging with a hypothetical. He's trying to like weasel out of it really hard. So if he's trying to weasel out of it, it means he either knows that there's an answer. Either he can't engage, but I think he can intellectually. He's smart enough to. Or two, the more likely thing, he could engage, but he knows that the answer that he gives is going to sound bad. So he doesn't want to take the optical loss. So he's going to dance around it until Mr. Girl gets bored and moves on, or until he ends a call, I guess.
Argued raising the age of consent.
I'm not trying to catch. You think I'm trying to trap you after what I said to you? After I told you I was a Care Bear, and you think I'm trying to? You think this is a sting? Listen, androids, fucking perfect replicas. The strip thing again. No one is getting hurt. They
Androids
just look exactly like humans. My question is, which club is the most popular? My question is, where do you think we're at? And I'm asking it in kind of a exciting way because we're in public. But where do you think we're at? What is?
I genuinely don't think that much has been done to culturally disbar the average modern guy from the attitudes that we had back in antiquity towards women and attractiveness towards women.
And what number?
I think it would be somewhere
do you not
from
want to answer
14.
This question?
No, I think it'd be somewhere from 14 to 17. I don't think we've changed.
Those are big. That's a big difference.
I have no idea, and I couldn't even begin to think by which categories I would separate them.
You know, I had a someone I knew who.
Just, you know, if you're going to admit to any crimes, I would really rather not be listed in whatever federal reports are filed, so I would prefer it be done to video on your stream, unrelated to my own.
So there's no crime. No crimes.
Hopefully not, because it was kept in a sovereign state, as opposed to the United States of America.
Yeah, this takes place in the United States. It actually takes place in Beverly Hills. Wait, are you? Can I ask you some biographical questions?
Sure.
Are you from Beverly Hills? I've heard this, but I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, I was born there.
Okay, but you don't live there?
No.
Okay. Because I worked in Beverly Hills for many years as a personal trainer. And so in the gym, you get to know people. People from different countries with different norms. And man, the shit they would say about high school girls and tell me like that if they could be with a girl of any age, if it was socially acceptable, it would be 15. It was like super like normal to them. It's very, very different from online discourse. Okay,
yeah, I think
so
it's deeply unfortunate.
Yeah, I want to get to that in a second. But you're saying 14 to 17, and you will not, you won't pick a number?
I will absolutely not pick a number within the range.
Why?
Because you don't have a guess, or because you don't want to be clipped saying it?
Because I don't even know by what category you would distinguish into that group, and because I'm referring only to my feelings on other people's predilections, not to my own. So you're not asking me for my preference, you're asking me what I expect of the average American.
No,
a group of which I have a very low impression.
Okay, but you don't want to say the number.
I don't have a number. Do you have a number? Is there a number you're looking for?
I think it's 15.
Well, I suppose we'll leave it to the historians to judge.
Maybe 16. It might be. I think it would be 14 at first, and then it would move up once the novelty wore off. I think it would be 15 or 16.
Is
Jesus.
this consideration in line with your desire to empathize with pedophiles, or is it something more personal than that?
Damn.
What do you mean? by that?
Accusation is
Well, I
dropped.
mean, you sound like a pedophile, not a person who wants to promote empathy for socially misaligned people.
Oh no.
Why do I sound like a pedophile?
Because you're dedicating a considerable amount of thought to the subject of what type of underage girl people would be most interested in.
What color? If you had to guess what color their underwear would be, Vaush, what would
right.
you say?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm at,
Okay, here's what I don't understand. So obviously Vaush is worried about getting clipped, which is actually, by the way, I am totally sympathetic towards Vaush there. I get fucking clipped. I'll probably get clipped for this conversation. Or fuck that. It's probably already happening in these accounts that I already have blocked on Twitter. I'm sure that it's happened. I'm sure that it's happening to me right now. But then why not just say as Vaush, I know why. I'm going to ask and then I'll answer. Why not just say I'm not comfortable talking about like the pedophile question. I don't want to talk about this. It's just too hairy for me. It's not worth it. The reason why he doesn't want to say this is because he wants to give the impression that there's like a topic that he's unwilling to discuss, or he doesn't want to seem like he's taking a loss there by being like not willing to confront a dangerous or edgy topic because he wants to maintain that like edge or whatever. Yeah, but Jesus, I wonder how he ends this. So now we've got a 5-minute ending here. Is it just going to be him accusing this guy of being a pedophile, basically?
You see that? You people ask for debates, and what do we get? This is on you. What could we have had? Metroid Prime stream. What did we end up having? Whatever the fuck that was. Alright, if you all get any Discord DMs from a MrGrirl, I strongly suggest you screen those. Alright. Create the empathy website. So this is what I mean by like the the Trojan horse thing, right? Okay. So here's a statement that most psychologists would agree with, okay? In order to minimize the harm done to children, okay, we have to maximize the number of people with pedophilic predilections go to therapy. We have to maximize the number of people who go to therapy because that's the best way of preventing harm to kids, right? And one of the ways that you can increase the likelihood of that happening is by like making it known that if they go to therapy, they'll like get treatment. Like they're not just going to be like burned to the stake or whatever, you know. And that's true, you know. And sometimes people do approach this subject in a way which makes essentially they use language that would like make pedophiles think they should never go to therapy because if they do, they'll be like fucking outed by their therapist and their life will be over, blah, 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 and that increases the likelihood of harm, blah, blah. The issue is that there are plenty of people, you know,
Okay, I don't think I can reverse this.